You guys have siblings? Who has siblings? Okay. You ever fought with your siblings? No, never. So keep holding those hands because that's true. We all fight, right? Why do siblings fight? I mean, this is a funny thing. It's like in the families, siblings always have something going on, some kind of a contention. And the answer is not so simple. Obviously, there are many reasons why siblings fight. But I guess that some may be legitimate reasons and some are maybe petty reasons, right? I mean, just think about just the kind of things that you fought with your siblings over. Really stupid stuff a lot of times, right? In the end, people in general and siblings are so different. They're just not like each other. So they fight because they have opposite goals, opposite outlooks on life. They have agendas that are not like the other person. So different priority, dissimilar values. There's lots of reasons why siblings end up fighting and arguing with each other, or some sort of a contention. So, and a lot of times, contentions and disagreements and fights, they surface even with people who are twins. Anybody has twins? I don't know. You got twins? Okay, twins right there. So you know, twins are special. And every time I read passages about twins, and of course Torah has them, so they're special to me. And no doubt you notice that this happens with children from the same family, okay? We have children from the same family being raised in the same exact environment, given the same kind of upbringing, education, values, being taught all kinds of things. And when they grow up to be so different. And you ask of yourself, what happened? They had the same environment, like fed them from the same food, everything the same parents, same genetic code essentially, right? Yet, they come out and they have their own unique individuality. They have their own way of looking at life. The things that they consider important, the priorities they embrace, completely different. So I found that puzzling about twins. I find that puzzling about, just brothers and sisters growing up together. Same parents, same upbringing, come out completely different. I'm puzzled because, we don't really control the situation. You think you do, but we don't. It really is up to Hashem how they grow up. And the way that He shapes and molds people as they grow up, I think is really something we don't fully understand, but it's something that happens on the inside. So, even with twins who share these unusual bonds, unusual connections, and that is very true. I think it's been studied on many levels, even scientifically, that twins have this amazing connection over great distances of times, being completely separated. They still feel very much, a lot of times, what the other twin feels. No way of knowing what's going on with them, but they feel that. Even with that, their differences can be so incredibly stark. And that is what we have in the story of Jacob and Esau. I don't know if you ever thought about it that way. Because they were brothers and twins. To me, it's just a beautiful story. So they were radically different. Absolutely different from each other. And so in Bereshit, in Genesis chapter 25, verse 22, Torah tells us that when Rebekah had twins, they were fighting already in her womb. Remember reading that? They warred with each other so much inside Rebekah that she was just miserable. I can only imagine. She was feeling their pain. The siblings fight, and parents often end up getting hurt in the process too, by the way. Rebekah was getting it in a very real way, because they were fighting inside of her. So it's a wild story. But the twins grew up in that same environment, but they were so not alike. And so the Torah actually tells us, the differences between the twins, and it even tells us which parents who was favorite to. Did you find that at all interesting? I find it's really nice that Torah actually tells us that I'm not the only one who plays favorites. Like they had their favorites too, right? If you think you don't play favorite with your kids, think twice. So, but the difference is that, of course, what matters is not their differences of character. Yes, Jacob and Esau were different. What matters is their spiritual values and their aspirations in life. That is what was completely different with Jacob and Esau. Perhaps that is the greatest difference between them. So, I imagine that these twins did not give each other an inch all life long. And Torah paints this vivid picture of their adversarial relationship. And Yaakov, he was named Yaakov because he was born holding on to Esau's foot, literally, not willing to let him go. So that's what he was called, heel grabber. So some people deem him a trickster and a deceiver, and many feel bad for Esau when he sells his birthright because of hunger. Have you ever felt bad for Esau? Because he knew he was getting duped right there, right? So maybe you felt that way. I don't know. So this Yaakov, this heel grabber, he might have been desperate as the younger twin to get the upper hand on his brother at all times, all throughout his own life. But the really sad reality in this story, in this situation, is that Esau valued the firstborn privilege way too little. And that's why Yaakov was able to do what he did. That's why. He valued it way too little. Now, on one hand, this fight for preeminence that we experience in the Torah between the siblings, that's what's going on. But on the other hand, it's actually about rich spiritual promises that Isaac was to pass on to his primary heir. That's what really that fight and contention was about. It wasn't just about being the firstborn. The Esau did not see that as important. And after Jacob ran away, by the way, Esau moved out of the land of Canaan. You remember the land that was promised? Remember the land that Abraham said, do not take my son out of this land. By no means are you to take him anywhere else. This is our place. This is where we're supposed to be. This is where our future is. Esau, he actually moved to the mountains of Seir. He was just perfectly fine living somewhere else. He clearly did not embrace the promises and the things, even though his brother wasn't even there to be in his way. His brother ran away to another distant land. He did not stay in Canaan. That tells you something. It tells you something about him and his character and his outlook on life. So in Genesis 25, verse 35, Torah says that after Yaakov gave his brother the stew, Esau, this is what he did. It says, Vayochal, Vayeshet, Vayakam, Vayelech. He ate, he drank, he rose, he went on his way. I mean, this is the scene of the food being eaten. Okay, he's about to starve. He can't wait another second. He's got to have this food. So he finally says, sell me your birthright. He gives him the food. And it says, he ate, he drank, he rose, he went on his way. That's what the Torah says right there. And I'm reading the story. 4 verbs in a row. A lot of action. You know what it doesn't say? It doesn't say anything about regret. It says nothing about this transaction. Oh, I changed my mind. I should not have done that. What was I thinking? It doesn't say anything like that at all. As if nothing just happened. That's what it sounds like. It just says he ate, he drank, he rose, he went on his way. Just a matter of fact. Just another meal. Nothing is happening here. Esau just ate and left. And the Torah concludes with a very sad statement. I think it's sad. It says, Vayevez Esav el habichora. And Esau disregarded his right of the firstborn. That's how that sentence actually ends. So that's what was really happening when he just ate, got up, and left, and went away. So I think in this story, how these words speak to us today, there's a couple of lessons for you. So I have the first principle for you. First lesson that we can learn is be obsessed with God's favor. You see, Yaakov, he was obsessed with God's favor. I think that's why he did what he did. Abraham found favor with God. And he was made some very remarkable promises. He was distraught in his childlessness, if you remember the story, very much so. So much so that he pursued offspring outside of God's plans. Now, why did he do that? Because he was obsessed with God's favor and the promises that God made him. He wanted to see them come to life soon, right away, as fast as he could. So he was impatient. And when Isaac was born, he was absolutely desperate to see that potential, that holy potential that Hashem has promised to him, realized through him. And he was so desperate. Because of that, God decided to test him by asking him to lay his son on the altar of sacrifice. Just think about it. Now, Isaac knew at this point in the story that one of his sons will carry that favor, carry that sense, that feeling, and he realized that Hashem was glad to give him two sons, but one of his sons will carry that blessing. And one of his sons yearned for the blessing of his grandfather. You can guess who in the story. The question is, would you fight for the right to carry God's favor today? Are you at all, maybe a little bit, obsessed with this idea? Would you put Hashem's will, his light, his goodness over food or drink or rest? Or will you just say, no, just give me that bowl of food, that's all I want? Now I know that if you do, you will prosper. And that's why I say be obsessed with God's favor. It's a good quality. It's a great character quality for us to have. My second point is this. Do not reject your heritage or despise your potential. Do not reject your heritage or despise your potential. Now, you may not be standing to inherit the Holy Land, okay, just like in this Torah story, and maybe you don't have the divine promises of greatness or even a birthright that means something, or that kings and nations will come out of you. Just think about what's on the line for them. But you have to understand that this right of the firstborn that we keep reading about this in this portion, what it represents in the Torah is something really precious. It stood for an immense spiritual potential, an amazing privilege that could not be evaluated or valued with any sort of monetary or economic sense whatsoever. Think about it. Think about what he sold. He sold something that really wasn't for sale. It has no value. Hashem's enduring supernatural blessing, his presence. Can you put a value on that? Being the chosen heir of the covenant promises, the line of future kings, being the chosen heir from whom Messiah himself will come into this world. Esav had that potential, and you sold it for a meal. Now, some of you listening to me today, I know that you have privileges that you may have inherited. And you also may think of those privileges, those blessings, as too little as well. You dismiss your spiritual gifts. You disregard your potential that God gave you. If that's you, let the story speak to you. Don't be like Esau. There may not be a Jacob in your life who will take it from you. Yes, there may not be somebody right there standing, waiting to take that away from you. But you may never see the spiritual blessings because you're too focused on where your next meal is coming from or something like that. Yeshua taught us that where our heart is, our treasure will be also. Will your future be the one that Hashem will reward with the awesome blessings? Are you obsessed with God's favor? Or maybe, you're despising your heritage and putting aside the potential that He gave you. I think this Torah passage teaches us a lot about priorities and values that we place on such intangible things that we really cannot put a price on.